Have you ever wondered why we are so drawn to beauty? You know, we're filming this episode of Short Answers in a small jewellery store in Dundee. We're run by a friend of Solas. In fact, we'll put a link to her work in the show notes so you can appreciate some of what she does. And Elizabeth designs jewellery. She doesn't just sell other people's jewellery. She's an artist. She designs her own. And if we had time, I'd love to sort of take the camera up and show you some of the amazing pieces of work of art that she's done in these cabinets behind me. And as human beings, we love art and beauty. We're drawn to these things, aren't we? Whether it's jewellery, whether it's beautiful, works of art that hang in galleries up and down the country. For some of us, it's music. We love listening to music. It moves us deeply. I think of things like National Geographic magazine that I have long subscribed to. I love the astonishing, beautiful landscape photography that often adorns the cover of that magazine. Or I think of the fact that many of us, like myself, one of my hobbies is hiking. In fact, I've just come back from 2 weeks climbing in the English Lake District, and I've spent many happy hours in the last 2 weeks dragging my sweaty, aching body to the top of various hills, standing there with other hikers, admiring the view in front of us. And it's interesting to ask, why do we do that? Where does this love of beauty come from? It's an interesting enigma, isn't it? Because if we live in a purely godless universe where all that matters is that we survive and we reproduce and we pass our DNA on to the next generation, what possible value does that love of beauty have? In fact, one of the most famous atheists the last few years, Richard Dawkins, once said that things like our love of beauty are, as he put it, Darwinian misfirings. It's just some part of our DNA and our genes misfiring in some way and causing us to love these things, but they have no instrumental value. Well, I hope you hear a quote like that and you think that basically that is so wrong, it's almost impossible to sort of exaggerate how wrong that wrongness actually is, because beauty is so much part of the human experience. But it does raise these kind of questions. Another famous atheist from a few years ago, Albert Camus, once said something very interesting, reflecting on these things and trying to fit beauty within his atheistic worldview. Camus wrote this. He said, "Beauty is unbearable. It drives us to despair because it offers us for a minute the glimpse of an eternity that we should like to stretch out over the whole of time." And I found those words tragic in a way, that Camus was drawn to beauty. He was a writer, so he loved working with words and creating works of art through the written word. But he was wrestling with the fact that as an atheist, beauty really doesn't fit. I mean, after all, sunset. What is a sunset? It's just photons bouncing off the atmosphere. What's a piece of jewellery? It's just a conglomeration of atoms. What's a beautiful piece of poetry? Nothing more than letters jumbled together on a page. But instinctively we know it's more than that, and Camus couldn't quite fit that within his worldview. Well, I would say beauty fits much better within the Christian worldview, because the Bible says that actually the God who made this world didn't just merely make it functional, he didn't just make it full of mechanisms, but he created a world that was beautiful. He created the sunsets and the mountains and the stars and so on and so forth. And in fact, in the Psalms, one of the books in the middle of the Bible, it actually says that the whole of creation sings out in praise to the God who has made it. The heavens declare the beauty and the glory of God. And if you find yourself moved by beauty, you find a piece of music that moves you, or a beautiful view that you find yourself drawn to, or wherever it is that you find that tug of beauty on you, don't just ignore it. Don't try and explain it away. Don't just not stop and think about it, but ask yourself the question, could it be a clue to something much bigger going on? To actually the God who is the great artist who created this beautiful world, but also created you and I, and offers us an invitation in the person of Jesus, not just to enjoy the world that he's made, but to actually get to know the artist himself.